Dang, no one saw last week coming. Sometimes the aftermath can be as destructive as the events themselves. There are some events you can never prepare for, but the secret is knowing the two key things that will help get you through times like these. What are those two keys? Listen to find out. Hi, it's the Urban Lady Prepper. I help single moms and solo women with practical emergency preparedness. But of course, all are welcome to be better prepared for whatever happens next. I had a different episode planned for today, but I don't think it matters where you are in the world. It's been one hell of a week. You can't even call it a roller coaster. It seems like, okay, never mind. It is like a roller coaster. It's the part where you're at the top, and then it just keeps going down. Here in the U.S., we're dealing with yet another school shooting, which is becoming a sad national pastime at this point, an economy that's circling the drain, and groups of people who appear to have lost their minds altogether. I wish I could point to some positivity, but there is very little to be found. Believe me, I tried. I've had to dig deep. There are many things I'd like to say and opinions I have, but what I posted on my Facebook page instead was a quote from Young Pueblo, which says, "Be so steady in your own energy that you invite people into your peace instead of falling into their tension." I know there are a lot of podcasters and content creators who've had to measure themselves on how they responded to a murder that occurred last week. It's one thing to see the political conflicts amongst our leaders, our neighbors, and family, but sometimes the conflict is internal. In an earlier podcast, I talked about how I'm not just Stoic by nature, I follow it as a philosophy. But I'm sure even my fellow Stoics are probably feeling, yes, I said feeling, up against it right now. When everything around you is so emotionally charged, we've been pushed to the brink of what we can take mentally, emotionally, and financially. It's not easy. What I believe is really important, and I think is crucial for anyone, especially if you're getting into prepping, is being able to not only regulate your emotions, but also ration them. Being able to do this will help you get through weeks like these, and believe me, there are many more weeks like these to come. So, I'd like to provide some tips to help you stay steady during a time when the present is frightening, the future is bleak, and even more people have shown you who they are just when you thought you had them figured out. The first thing I'd like to recommend is to remember that words spoken can't be taken back, and the internet is forever. As we're being pushed to our limits, I think we're all fed up with everything, and it doesn't take much for us to make that rash comment, post that nasty meme, or otherwise lash out when something happens that we can't wrap our heads around while dealing with people we don't understand and can't reason with. So, I suggest taking a step back. General, that knee-jerk reaction is not your best look. Think twice before sending that email or making that post. If news comes through that makes you so upset that it shakes you, it might be better to get up and walk away for a minute to collect yourself before you do or say something you'll later regret. One of the things I've championed since the beginning of Urban Lady Prepper is self-control. This is something that comes naturally to some more than others, but as we try to navigate everyday tasks with people who are increasingly becoming strangers, or just stranger in general, being able to get a grip and not be ruled by your emotions is going to serve you well now and going forward. This is not the time for snap anything. Not a snap judgment, not a snap reaction, not an action that didn't have forethought. Should a disaster or world-ending event happen, and as of right now, it's not off the table, the ones who can take a deep breath, pull themselves together, and think it through are the ones who are going to make it. Being able to regulate your emotions is a skill that requires practice because, as one meme once said, I honestly believe some people were put on earth to test my anger management skills. We're all being tested right now. I'm not going to lie, I lost my shit yesterday, which is why I must add that regulating your emotions doesn't mean that you don't have to act as if they don't exist. That's what makes us human. The secret is knowing how to let that feeling flow through you and then deciding if what made you upset directly impacts you and will alter your personal existence. If it doesn't, move on. Also, do you have enough information to justify any immediate action you thought about taking while feeling that emotion? If you don't, wait till you do. And if what got you in your feelings does impact you directly and you do have enough information to be justified in that emotion, then you should take into consideration what impact that reaction will have on others, especially those you care about. Something I've had to grapple with mentally, and maybe you do as well, is why people are so obsessed with other people's lives and what's going on in them, and are upset that they can't control them. Their own lives might be a hot mess, but they sure as hell have an opinion about what you should be doing with yours. I'll never be able to understand people like that. I believe that folks need to do what makes them happy, and as long as it doesn't involve doing awful things to others, especially children or animals, leave people alone. Freedom is for everyone, not just a select few in a certain demographic. Happy people make for a happier planet. We should all want that. But for some reason, it is so hard for too many people to do. It's as though if they don't force other people to live their lifestyle, their own choices can't be validated. It makes no logical sense, but this is what scars our past, shapes our present, and will greatly affect our future. We may not be able to change those people, and they will always work to find ways to trigger you because more positive pursuits elude them. So make sure to take time to decompress. This onslaught, this barrage of chaos, otherwise known as flooding the zone, is intended to keep you off balance, unsure, and willing to give up and cave in. Or so on edge that every soundbite that so much as blinks at your deepest fears or darkest fantasies will set you off. Now, more than ever, it's essential to make time for self-care and rest. Designate a time when you will not listen to the news, look at social media, or communicate with people unless absolutely necessary. Sometimes you just need to step away from the fray and let your brain empty out. Sometimes you need to read that trashy novel, watch that dung TV show that requires no more than 2 brain cells, or listen to music that makes you smile. Take that bath in the middle of the day. Go for a walk. Sit in the park and not once look at your phone. And for that span of time or that whole day, tell people to leave you alone unless their ass is literally on fire. This will give you a reset and calm your nerves, which will also help you better regulate your emotions because you haven't waited until you burned out or, as some of us say, tore your ass or played yourself, and now you have the additional task of damage control or just looking like an idiot. The second key is rationing. Here are the things in your life that are precious: your money, your time, your belief system, your core values, your preps, and what you can provide emotionally. None of these things should ever be given, shown, or shared freely without discretion. Just as people are quick to point out that nobody owes you anything, you don't owe anyone anything either. You don't owe them the gift of those precious things because they are gifts, and we have to decide, now more than ever, how to ration them out. While some of those things will always be a part of who you are, just as your stash can be depleted if you're not careful, so can your spirit. Don't allow yourself to be pressured or gaslit into providing any of them to people who don't deserve it. There are those who extend no grace or care to you, but expect you to give it. To someone who, if you were lying injured on the ground, would step over you, take a picture, and post it with laughing emojis. To someone, if you were on fire, wouldn't pee on you to put it out. We must be very selective about where and how we're going to give these precious things and to whom we're going to display our emotions. We need to be more discreet, private, and discerning about where we share those things. Too many strangers have access to information about us that they probably shouldn't have. So for those things, those precious things that I mentioned earlier, don't give them access to that too. To sustain yourself, the people you love, the causes you care about, and the goals you've set, you'll need a deep well of all of those precious things so they're available to what and who truly deserves them. So by regulating your emotions and rationing your valuable attributes, you'll be able to maintain the right mindset to power through an era that will force you to make some tough decisions, decimate relationships, and choose a side. Even for those who present as mainly neutral, and I include myself in that, it may give you some privacy, but it won't always guarantee your safety. As people become more frustrated and desperate, their intentions and misdirected anger can be costly and even dangerous, even if you're doing your best to keep your head down and out of all the tussles. We may have an event occur that won't discriminate, and you may find yourself in the thick of it with some choices to make. The better you have it mentally together, should you have to make a snap decision, you'll be so steady, you'll have a better chance of making the one that saves your life. If you haven't already, start stockpiling as much food and water as you can. I have plenty of information on what you'll need if things get so ugly you feel safer indoors. If there comes a time when you don't and you need to bug out, now is the time to figure out where you would go and how you would get there. Folks, we're sitting on a powder keg with a short fuse. The sooner you recognize this, the faster you'll understand that your focus should be on preparing for and planning your security and your future, not what other people with their own agendas are screaming at you to do or feel. Thanks for listening, and be careful out there. Until next time, this is the Urban Lady Prepper signing off. I'm sure I've given you some things to think about as you go through the upcoming week. Has this episode resonated with you? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to click the link in the podcast description to get your free Essential Prepper checklist. While there, get one of my cool designs on a shirt, hat, mug, and more at my Redbubble store. Or you can always buy me a coffee or get a Jace case for your emergency medical needs. It helps support what I do, and I really appreciate it. Join me on the socials, especially on YouTube, where I'll be uploading videos for my blogs from urbanladyprepper.com. I appreciate your time with me. Stay safe, stay sharp, and be ready.